Let's bring New York to the front of the congregation. Overtime is exploding for police officers. And again, this comes back down to the bag. Overtime is exploding for police officers while residents is complaining about the quality of life over in New York. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's get to it, y'all.
The NYPD's overtime budget is soaring. It is up 50%. The department says that's because of frequent protests in New York City surrounding the conflict in Gaza. And it also is paying more to patrol the subways with the recent surge of high-profile crimes. The top brass today faced tough questions from members of the city council. Here's Eyewitness News reporter N.J. Burkett.
You get what you pay for.
NYPD Commander Edward Caban insisted today that the results speak for themselves.
Shooting incidents are down 16%, and murder has dropped 18.8%, while burglary has been reduced by 12.7%, and overall crime is down 1.6% citywide.
But in a hearing before the City Council, NYPD commanders admitted that costs are soaring. Police deployments in the subway system and details for demonstrations have blown the NYPD's overtime budget by more than $100 million, on course for an increase of 50% over their own projections. Council Speaker Adrienne Adams was firm.
The continued spending and significant excess of the budget on overtime only intensifies concerns about the department's management of its budget and workforce.
Department officials revealed today that officers have policed nearly 2,000 demonstrations since October 7th, and that overtime costs for the ongoing subway deployments are costing the department more than $2.5 million a week in overtime alone. Transit Chief Michael Kemper defended the deployments while admitting to Public Safety Chair Yusef Salaam that more outreach would make New Yorkers safer.
If you're asking me my honest, personal, under oath opinion, more effort needs to be spent on the topic of mental health, particularly in the subway system, yes.
The hearing was interrupted multiple times by anti-police protesters, and several council members questioned the administration's priorities. Public Advocate Jomani Williams suggested the department's getting special treatment among city agencies.
But some reason, the NYPD is the only one that has access to the type of overtime that they claim they need.
Police commanders are defending their budget projections tonight, insisting that they can only anticipate so much. The department's chief of patrol told the council today that demonstrations this summer are destined to heat up.
Listen, if you want to get rich, go over and become a police officer in New York. If you want to get rich, go over there and become a police officer in New York. Now, nobody is addressing the protesters. Nobody is addressing the migrant crisis. No, see, isn't it funny within the culture that people want to have a conversation about how we proactively prevent issues and problems from arriving in the first place, except for when it comes to solving for crime and issues? But every single time it comes to policing, it then becomes an issue. Well, then stop creating crime and stop embracing this culture and stop protesting and stop robbing people and stop having migrants come over and turning your city into a sanctuary city. And then we won't need as much overtime. But every single day I get videos and I get emails and I get DMs about people that's saying that, yo, another shooting happened on the subway and people don't feel safe and they got to bring out the National Guard. Meanwhile, they cut 5% from the budget because they didn't have enough officers in the first place. Part of the reason why you have to spend more on overtime, which then costs you a whole lot more per police officer, is because you don't have a sufficient amount of staffing in the first place. When they have to cut budgets from sanitation, education, hiring police officers that are already woefully understaffed, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Okay, so you complaining about, let's put it in perspective, y'all. They complaining about what's happening over in Pittsburgh, and they saying, man, I can't believe that the people are reducing staffing so that they meet the budgetary restrictions that we set for them, and that they're allocating police officers depending on what times are requiring the most of them, and they giving a blue light system, and they shutting down particular precincts at certain times because they don't want police officers just sitting there. You can't have it both ways. Either you want to defund the police or you want to keep your community safe and do it the right way. And if you want to do it the right way, then that means you got to work with the police, not against them. Because the one thing that I don't believe that you should ever cut a budget for is safety. One thing that I don't believe that you should ever cut a budget for is safety. Under no circumstances will I ever prioritize anything else above my safety or the safety of my family and the safety of the people that surround me. Under no circumstances. You need to figure it out. Cut the budget when it comes to the migrant crisis. Y'all spending way more money on the migrant crisis than y'all spending on police officers. Before we start talking about and having whole hearings, look at New York. Look at how foolish these protesters and these activists are as far as sitting in front of these council members and all of these house committees and stuff, and they sit there and they protest against. Ain't this the same thing that we was dealing with the summer of before last as far as defunding the police? And now y'all sitting there complaining about what's happening over New York, Oakland, San Francisco, San Diego, Seattle, Chicago, Houston, Spring Breakers, Milwaukee. Which way you want it? Either you want more police in order to make sure that you stay safe, and then you want to work with the police as far as making sure the judicial system don't allow for these people to just get out with no bail or no consequences. Either we want more police and then you want to get rid of the Safety Act over in Chicago because you don't want more criminals just feeling comfortable about the fact that they're not going to get no bail anyway. We seen what happened in New York even with the migrants. The migrants went over there and they was over there beating people up in Times Square and stabbing people and hitting police officers in the head and kicking them, and then they walked out free. The next day, the next morning, they was walking out free. Ain't nobody even know who these migrants are. They walked out free and they released them out onto the street, and then they just went out and did some more stuff again. Which one you want? Which one you want? If you want to reduce the amount of overtime, then A, hire more officers. B, stop reducing the original budget. C, start funding the things that actually is meaningful for the community instead of a migrant crisis and all of this other foolishness. And then D, participate in proactively reducing the need for police in the first place by making sure that we get our cultural norms together. It's simple. I don't want to hear no more unless y'all okay with making sure you catching public transportation and anybody can get on there and do anything to you. Which way you want it? Either you want it to be defunded or you don't. And people feel comfortable protesting over in New York. Cool. Now the police officers is going to get rich. When we start pulling up how much police officers is making in New York by the end of the year, and it started looking like 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, y'all start seeing police officers in New York driving Ferraris, I'm not going to complain one bit. I'm going to be like, hey, them people is keeping y'all safe. When the police officers pull up in that Lambo, don't complain. Not even one little bit. Not even a little bit. Meanwhile, over in New York, all of the residents are saying that they're having problems and they don't like the quality of life.
New survey is asking, how do you feel about life in New York City? And the answers aren't so great. CBS News' Christina Fan reports on the findings.
In the first quality of life survey taken of the city post-pandemic by the Citizens Budget Commission, the results are looking pretty bleak, with New Yorkers feeling less positive, not very safe, and unsatisfied with most city services. The nonprofit interviewed more than 6,600 households and found only 30% of New Yorkers rate quality of life as excellent or good, and 1/3 rated as poor. Our own conversations with families on the street mirrored the same.
People are going crazy, and it's worse. It's getting worse.
Before, nobody steal nothing in the street.
Well, the streets are not as clean. Yeah.
Look, right after that, the news didn't go out there and say, hey, the streets ain't safe. People stealing. They breaking into stuff. Okay, do you want police officers or you don't? Do you want to change the laws? You want to actually help them? You want to call and get the people that's doing all of this stuff arrested? You want to reduce the migrant crisis? The people are saying that the quality of life is bad because crime is rampant everywhere, but then we got people protesting about making sure that they get the police off the streets. Which one y'all want?
It's really, really messy.
According to the survey, just 37% of New Yorkers felt safe in their neighborhoods, down from 50% in 2017. 24% believe the quality of government services is good or excellent,
I'm familiar with it,
down
Hotel.
from 44% in 2017. And only 11% feel the government is spending tax dollars wisely, compared to 21% 6 years ago. In response to the dismal results, the Adams administration says it's important to keep context in mind.
We're seeing this across the country after COVID. A lot of cities are having problems rebounding back and having people say that they're up to the same quality of life.
Results vary depending on race, neighborhood, and income, with white people, residents of Manhattan, and those with higher salaries more likely to report satisfaction. The survey also found the focus of Mayor Adams' administration does align with New Yorkers' priorities, including public safety, housing, and clean streets, but that a great deal of progress still needs to be made.
All those things that New Yorkers believe that are important, the report says that we are on the right track. The goal is to continue on that right track.
Communities reporting the lowest satisfaction with quality of life include Jackson Heights in Queens and Kingsbridge in the Bronx. Those with the
I knew they was going to say the Bronx. It's always the Bronx.
highest satisfaction include the West Village, Cobble Hill, and right here in downtown Brooklyn.
You can't have it both ways. Y'all got to pick a struggle. You got to pick. And you know what the worst part about New York is that they got some of the highest taxes in the entire country. Overtaxed, overcrowded. One protest every single day. I don't even know why nobody got a car in New York. Hey, at this point, because I used to really be obsessed with it. Maybe it was because Wu-Tang Clan. Maybe it was because of all of the protests, and maybe it was because of the old movies and the gangster movies and stuff like that. But man, I used to really, New York at one point in my life, when I was in my early 20s, New York, and I mean early 20s, New York was at the very top of my list of places that I needed to live in. Before I got married, that is. Before I got married, New York was at the very top of my list of the places that I wanted to live, at least for a 2-year span. Boy, did that change. Boy, did that change. Nope. You go over to New York. Yo, if you walk around New York in the daytime and you don't see a rat, and I ain't talking about the ones that's walking on 2s. I'm talking about the ones that's walking on 4s. If you don't see a rat in New York, and I ain't even talking about, you ain't got to go to the Bronx. Bro, you could just be walking down the street. Walking down the street. Just a big old rat. Ain't nobody chilling. Ain't nobody concerned. Yo, is that a possum? Nah, that's a rat, big dog. Is that a raccoon? Nah, that's that new rat. They got these new rats over in New York. It's different over here, bro. What do you mean? What kind of new rats? These rats... These rats are super rats. They just take the cheese right off the trap. They take the trap and the cheese at the same time. And then they throw all of the trash out on the ground. It's crazy. Yo, to think that Tokyo has more people and a larger footprint, but it's 10 times cleaner, and they don't even have trash cans on the street, is insane to me. Man, if y'all ever been to Tokyo, you would think like they can't have as many people here. People are polite. They walk down the street. Police officers don't even be having guns on them. They just be having the little batons and they be speaking to people. They have the little satellite offices on the street. People having a good time. They got tourists everywhere walking. Ain't no trash cans nowhere. People just take their trash with them. It's a completely different culture. To think that Tokyo is the New York of Japan, but then they have 10 times better results is crazy. Because it's funny because I went to Tokyo right after I went to New York, and the differences was just vast. It was so different. It was just vast. And it was a great experience, and I had a great time, and the people was nice, and we stayed in a phenomenal hotel, and we walked around, and we felt safe. There wasn't no rats nowhere, and it's just different. It was just absolutely different. I can't figure it out. Maybe it's just the culture. Shout out to Master Splinter over there in New York.